Hi everyone. Welcome to the sixth episode of the Women Startup Leader Series. In this episode, we have Sayma Rahman as speaker and Nisha Rahman, CEO of Bangladesh Angels, as moderator.
Excellent. So Sayma Rahman is an active startup mentor, investor, and advisor with startups such as Thrive EdTech and Jobike under her portfolio. An INSEAD and North-South University alumna, Sayma has had several positions of leadership across top organizations in the country throughout the years. Her expertise and experience across digitalization, partnerships, retail monetization, product development, projects, intrapreneurship, and angel investing makes her an asset to any startup. Sayma, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for being a part of BAN.
I'm very excited.
Awesome.
And the interview was very flattering.
No worries. I think you do have quite an extensive background, and quite honored and happy to be speaking with you and learning from you today. We always kind of start these conversations right at the beginning, just to kind of set the context. So for you, just curious, where did you grow up, and what did you aspire to be when you were younger?
So interestingly, my dad, he's a doctor, and he was an expat for a very long time. And, so part of it, that's why I was born in Iraq, in Baghdad. So it's very interesting. And then he moved to Libya. So I actually grew up in Tripoli. So, and obviously I would say that it's as a kid, when you grow up in a very multicultural environment, it teaches you a lot, and also you have very open mind about things. You learn from different cultures, countries, from a very young age. So I think, it was very interesting upbringing. Yeah. And also, we used to travel a lot, because part of my dad's job was, he used to move a lot. And also, Europe was very close to Libya, so we used to go to Europe a lot. So, yeah.
And I think that's where you caught the travel bug, right? What's the last count of countries you've traveled to?
Yeah. I think, I got into traveling because my dad used to travel a lot. And, I've been traveling from a very young age. So I got into it.
And you're part of this. I find this quite fascinating, and I think this is also like an underrated part of the diaspora. Are folks who grew up in the Middle East as third culture kids of Bangladeshi backgrounds, and then who end up kind of going either back to Bangladesh to study like you did, or some of them end up going to other places as well, and now they're in professional roles. And I'm meeting more and more of those folks every day. But yeah, tell us about how'd you end up coming back to Bangladesh? I guess it was to come back to North-South University to study.
Yeah, so I think, we got back because my dad always wanted to come back to Bangladesh, because my dad, he's actually from North Bengal. He's from Rajshahi, and he always wanted to come back to North Bengal. And as a doctor, he wanted to set up his own hospital and med school where he can help his local community. So it was his dream. And, so we just moved along with him because, we were kids, right? So, after working for a very long time abroad, and he felt that it's time for him to come back and start something of his own. So we came back, and then I joined North-South University. Yeah.
I don't know if we ever talked about this. My dad's also from Rajshahi, so who knows? We might actually have people in common. That's interesting. Yeah, we're from Nator, but no, and so you. Oh, go ahead.
Have you ever been there?
I do. I try to go once a year, right? Especially during mango season, right? And so that's always a good experience, kind of being in the village and away from the hustle and bustle of Dhaka.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you went to North-South, one of the oldest kind of private universities in the country, quite known now for developing a lot of talent, especially in sort of multinationals, corporates, and obviously startups as well. So what was that experience like, and how did you end up kind of then joining Grameen Phone, which is one of the largest telcos in Bangladesh?
I think initially it was a bit difficult because when I joined and I realized that everybody has their school buddies, and they hang out in a very school community and on the campus. And I was like a new kid, who didn't go to any school in Dhaka. So, I was kind of a loner initially. I think first semester I was like thinking how to make new friends, but because the campus was really small, I went to the Banani campus, which I think is the coolest campus, that NSU had. And, so it's very, small campus, everybody meets everybody. So it was easier for me to make friends. So yeah, and interesting thing is I never studied business in my life. So because my dad was a doctor, he always wanted me to be a doctor. And I grew up thinking that I'm going to be a doctor. But then I think, at one point in high school, I realized that, I don't like, biology. And then I'm like, okay, I want to do something else. So then I completely switched my study track and I got into business and I joined, BBA. So it was quite a shift. My dad was initially not happy about it, but then I think when I started getting good grades, and then he was like, okay, if as long as you're doing well, whatever you do, just make sure that you become the best. So that's all he wanted. Yeah, but he's still a bit upset that I'm not a doctor.
I think that speaks to all of us in the room.
Yeah.
So, either right, doctor or engineer.
Engineer, so, yeah.
That's right. Those are the two.
Always want their children to follow the same profession. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, transitioning gears a little bit, right? And so you've been kind of, you built your career at one of the largest companies in Bangladesh, Grameen Phone. You've been kind of working in, now you're head of retail partnerships, but you've been kind of making your way up in different partnership kind of roles over time, and as well as others as well. And I'd love to talk more about the digital partnerships you've worked on, right, with organizations like Google or YouTube or Facebook and Free Basics, even Alibaba. Can you talk about some of the partnerships you've kind of brokered, and how do these kind of tech companies look at the Bangladesh market?
Yeah, so I think, I joined the partnership role because a lot of these big companies, they were showing a lot of interest in the market. So, companies like Google and Facebook, like they would come to Grameen Phone, of course, because being the number one telecommunication organization in the country. So, and they would come to us with a lot of proposals, and Grameen Phone just realized that, hey, we don't have somebody to talk to these people and, try to explore something. So that's how the position was created internally. And then I think, to be honest, getting into Bangladesh as a business entity, if you are based outside of Bangladesh, it is a bit difficult. I think right now, with a lot of changes in the policies, Bangladesh Bank and also BTRC, they're making it easier to establish business in Bangladesh. But back in the days, in 2014, 15, 16, even till 18, it was very difficult. So, most of these companies, they couldn't come, so they wanted to do business with us, So, I think it starts with very basics, that how we can teach people internet, right? And, internet is our business. And you don't just go to people and like, hey, activate 3G or 4G data pack, because it doesn't make any, it doesn't create any value in their lives. So you go and tell them, why don't you create a Facebook account? And we actually taught people how to create a Facebook account and interact with their friends and families. And that's how we activated internet on their phone. So that's how these companies were helping us in spreading internet in the country. And, we were teaching utilities, like, a lot of people didn't know about Google search, how to send emails. We taught them how to create a Google Gmail account. So, I think that's how the partnership worked initially. And then we got into monetization. So we created a lot of data packs with them. So, yeah, but obviously they helped, tremendously in the spread of internet in the country.
And I'm just curious, how does this consumer education work, particularly at the grassroots? Are there people going around and doing this, like having sort of like field schools, like they might have with farmers, for example, back in the day, or how does that consumer education work at the root level?
Yeah, so we have one of the largest distribution network in the country with a lot of mass retail shops, like even like your moms and pops shops in the neighborhood is also a Grameen phone retail shop, right? So people go to these shops anyways every day for their everyday needs, and then at the same time we converted these retailers as also internet sellers. So whenever people would go and like, hey, recharge my phone with 10 taka, and then at the same time the retailers would be pitching them about internet, that there is a new service called WhatsApp, or there is a do you have a Facebook account, so stuff like that. I think that's how we utilize all these mass retailers to spread internet in this very rural areas.
And Grameen Phone is sort of the jewel in the crown of sorts of the Telenor network, which has kind of assets around frontier Asia. From your experience, working with colleagues in the Telenor network, how does Bangladesh compare nowadays when it comes to, say, internet connectivity or even consumer digital spend? And are there any interesting behaviors that are quite unique to Bangladesh compared to some of the other countries you guys might work in?
So, of course, we are not the highest revenue generator because our ARPU is still pretty low. But in terms of the subscription, we are the highest number. We have the highest number of customers in our base. So right now we have 8 crore plus. So, it's increasing right probably the moment I'm talking to you. So of course, in terms of subscription and potential market, we are the largest, and also the ARPU is increasing every day. So we are practically Telenor's cash cow right now. Yeah.
And in terms of, so you talked about how like big companies, and I also see like Spotify here, right? But like big internet companies will typically, at least back in earlier, would seek to work through Grameen Phone to enter the market. I know Grameen Phone has also done things to engage startups, and what are some examples that would you be able to give us some examples of Grameen Phone engaging with startups, maybe offering up their infrastructure and their kind of consumer base for startups to kind of grow on top of that?
Yeah, so initially, I think I was also involved in the project. I was leading the project. We actually came up with a platform called Alo Ashbe. It was a telco API platform for the local startups. So they could use a lot of our APIs, like our charging API, our messaging API, also I think our USSD API. So they could use a lot of our resources through this platform, and it was an open platform for all the local developers. So, it was a very initial stage, and then we transitioned into a much robust platform right now. It is called an API platform, Grameen Phone API platform, and it's open for the local developers. So, it helps all the developers to, of course, use our billing system and charge the customers, which is, helpful for their monetization.
Right. So it's not necessarily airtime billing, but it would be kind of building themselves or doing payments using Grameen phones. How would that work?
So you can use your Grameen phone wallet to pay for these apps or make an in-app purchase. So we don't have a license to like a full-fledged license like Bcash, unfortunately. But whatever in-app purchases customer wants to make, and they can use our billing system. I think it's more applicable for, say, gaming. Like in gaming, use a lot of coins and you buy a lot of stuff inside. So that's more helpful.
Got it. No, that's quite interesting, and that's a great kind of segue point then to kind of the next sort of area that I wanted to talk about is obviously your transition, or not transition per se, but your recent kind of forays into angel investing, right? And I think you're the archetype of more people we want to engage with are, who are corporate executives, looking into angel investing. But how, and this is one example of a company that you've invested in, Jobike. But but how did you originally get involved? I guess as a startup mentor and advisor and potentially investor.
So basically how it started is, I was working with the startups, right? And then, I thought that this is a huge market. It's a very potential market. And initially I was helping them from Grameen Phone's perspective, like how to use Grameen Phone API. And, I was mentoring them or guiding them. Then there was an opportunity from Telenor. So there is an intrapreneurship program, which is run by Telenor, where the Telenor employees, they can actually submit ideas, their startup ideas. And if you get selected, then, they will take you through an entire incubation program. So I formed a group with 3 people, and then we won. Our idea was on mental health. And then I became a part of the incubation program, and I was in Telenor for almost, 5 to 6 months. And that's how I grew interest in this, investment and startups. And Sajid Bhai was my mentor, Sajid Rahman, who was the CEO of Telenor Health. And, so I would always go to him and I'm like, I want to get into investment. And he would, I think every, startups I showed him, he said, no, no, no. And I think after 20 no's, then, I found Jobike. So, so that's how I invested in Jobike, because I thought that this could be, the next Uber probably in Bangladesh. But I think due to pandemic, we're a bit slow right now, but I think it's a huge potential, and it's also something that I'm very passionate about, which is healthy living. So, I have been, biking since I was a kid. So it's something I'm very passionate about.
So for those of you who are not familiar, so Sajid Rahman is, as mentioned, was CEO of a company called Telenor Health, which is now a company called Digital Health Solutions. But he's probably the most famous angel investor from Bangladesh on Angel List. I think he's done 900 plus investments in the last 10 years, and quite well known in the ecosystem. And also happens to be a board member of Bangladesh Angels, and we couldn't have started the organization without him. So really great to see that connection as well. So I mean, maybe going deeper, right? Let's say, maybe for the benefit of those in the room who might not be familiar, could you tell us a little bit more about, Jobike and what's the business model or what they're trying to do?
Yeah, so it's basically a ride-sharing service, which is, first say you have to go from point A to point B, and there is a bike at every corner of the street, and you can just subscribe to the bike and go to point B and pay. It's a digital payment, and you leave the bicycle and then you leave. That's it. It's very simple. Yeah, so we're running right now in Mirpur DOHS. We have very limited operations in Banani. We had a very big operation in Cox's Bazar, but I think due to COVID, it's a bit of slow business. We're not operating in most of the areas. Also in university campuses, it's pretty big.
So it typically works in these closed environments, I guess, closed physical environments. Yeah. Got it. Got it. With the set group of people who come in and out every day, or work there or live there, which I think makes sense in the.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then Thrive, I also want to just talk a little bit more about, so you recently become involved with an ed tech called Thrive. Could you tell us, what your involvement is and what they do?
So, it's very interesting. Thrive is started by one of my interns. I actually hired him in Grameen Phone, and he was working with me. And then, we changed teams, but, he continued in another team, and then he decided to leave his corporate career, and he started a startup. And the first thing he did after he left is like, he knocked me and he's like, Sayma, I want you to get involved in my startup, And then I looked into his portfolio, and I thought it's a fantastic idea, but they do need a little bit of grooming and mentorship. So I joined as an advisor. with the option to invest at some point. But right now I'm advising the startup. So it's an edutech, and I'm very passionate about education. I have also, I'm sure you have heard of Jago Foundation, right? Yeah, so, when Jago Foundation started, I was actually one of the volunteer teachers for 1 year in their school in Mohammadpur slum. So, I used to go to the slum every day, every weekend, and teach them. So, I'm very passionate about education, so I thought it's something I want to get into. And if you talk about Jago, it's actually a edutech platform where the interaction between the teacher and the students, it would be more enriched interaction. I think that much I can tell you, so where the students will get more personalized guidance from the teachers rather than just general advices. So also the students can compare their performance with the other students in the class. And, they would know that where they should be concentrating and improve for their next exam. So it's a very personalized service for the students.
And so this intern, is that Progo, the co-founder, or?
Yeah, it's Progo. So Rafid is actually my, my hire in Grameen phone. Yes. Yeah.
Got it. No, I think both of those guys are really great. Yeah. Both of those guys are quite excellent. And I know they recently raised the seed round. So quite excited to see where they go. And then the other company, I guess, in your portfolio, so you also work with iFarmer, is that right?
Yes, iFarmer, fantastic initiative. I know the founders. I thought this is such a lovely initiative. I think everybody should be investing in iFarmer as as an urban farmer. Yeah. So this business model is very simple. People like us, I don't think I can look after a farm on a day-to-day basis and maintain the operations. I don't know where to start from. But if you go to iFarmer, and they will find you a farm, and you just invest money, and they will look after your farm, and you will get back a return within 3 months to a year. So, and you're also helping the farmers community in the country. So it's a fantastic initiative. I actually invested in 2 farms already, and looking forward to investing more. Yeah, this is something that I would encourage anybody to. Maybe you should try, Ninter.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I think it's a great way to they really tapped into. I think the other element is the Sharia compliance, right? Because a lot of people in Bangladesh are sensitive about, obviously Sharia compliant finance, and they really tapped into, I guess, that desire as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so, within these 3 companies that you're involved with as an investor, mentor, advisor, just curious, and obviously you're talking to many more, right? And we talked about it too. What are some things that you look for when it comes to potential angel investments? And what are the most important criteria for you? Is it the founder? Is it the sector? Is it the business model?
I think the first is the category. If I'm really passionate about the certain category, so whether it's education or farming, but I really have to be passionate about the field. I think that's my first criteria. And then, of course, the next thing I look after, I check out is who's the founder, who's running the show, who's the man behind or woman behind the startup, and how passionate they are about what they're doing. I think that says a lot, because when I was doing the intrapreneurship program in Telenor, and I saw a lot of other teams, they came to the program because they just wanted to travel rather than build their idea and really get investment on their idea, or to make it much bigger business. But then there were other founders who were very passionate about what they're doing. They're very knowledgeable, they have personal connection, and I think that's something that I really look into. And then, of course, the business model. So business model is, it's like, how it's going to work right now. How do they see it's going to work out in next 5-7 years? So I think these three are very important for me. And working in phone, I think it taught us to have a very strict business case. So in Grameen phone, if you spend 100 taka, you have to make sure that you bring 101 taka, right? It's never a negative business case, right? So sometimes we have to work on a business case or forecast 3 to 5 years of business. So I'm very good with numbers and spreadsheets. So that's very important for me.
And I think that's something a lot of people in the audience as well can speak to, or people who are in the corporate sector can speak to, right, is kind of applying the idea of having a business case, even to kind of new models. And so, yeah, I mean, that's also a question, and we talked about this too, for those who are, in the corporate sector, who might think about, like you, and who might be starting to think about angel investing, but one, they're worried about the risk. Two, they're worried about the time commitment and how overwhelming it might get. What sort of advice would you have for them based on your own experience?
So, talking to my colleague who are in corporate, I think the first thing, the gap is the knowledge gap. I think most people, they don't see themselves as investors, even though they have enough resources to get into this investment community. They feel that it's not for me. They think that I don't have enough money to start with, because they think that you should have $1 million to be an investor. I think that's a misconception. I think that's where we should start the building knowledge and create more awareness that you don't need to have $1 million to start investing. Also, like, a lot of people don't know how they can be a part of this community. Like, should they be an investor, or they should be an advisor, or what are the stock options? Should they always get equity or not? What are the exit options? So I think even I had to learn a lot on these areas, because nobody really guided me. So that's why I used to go to Sajid Bhai, and thank God I have Sajid Bhai. But most people don't have a proper mentorship, so they don't know how to get into investment, or what are the options, how many ways you can actually invest. So I think there is a knowledge gap for the corporates like me. I'm just saying from my personal experience.
It makes a ton of sense that most people might think that, okay, well, this is only limited to people who are moving large amounts of money, or et cetera. And what you say, I mean, it very much is like a side gig, right, or a side hustle, and you have to almost kind of build that time in also to kind of learn more about it. Which makes a ton of sense. I'll end, with a few kind of reflections, right, on the ecosystem and also your career so far, and some of the questions we're grappling with as well, right? So one is, from your experience, how do we get more, female-led ventures and female-led companies to get funded within the ecosystem? And I'm curious about your experience with that.
I think we have to probably broaden the area. Like, it should not be just tech. I think it should go beyond tech, because there is a lot of women-led businesses, which may not be a tech startup, but we do need to encourage them that they also need funding, right? But they're probably thinking that because I'm not active on a tech platform, so I'm not part of this community. I think if we teach them that how to get onboarded on a tech platform, maybe that can be a start. Because personally, I know a lot of entrepreneurs who are female, but they don't come on these platforms because they feel that they're not a startup, but they're more of a business. I think that's where we need to guide them and bring them. And also probably they don't know how to pitch for investments. They don't know how to do valuations. So a lot of guidance and mentorship is required here.
But yeah, so long as they have the business case, right? Why should we just limit it to startups per se, right? Makes sense. And the other question, the other side of it is, how do we get more women to be part of angels or to be angels to start investing and be mentors, I guess, in the ecosystem?
So I can tell you from the corporate perspective, I think it's the knowledge gap again, because I struggled in the same area. I had good savings, but I just didn't know how to get into it. I didn't know about BAN, to be honest. I think Zawad knocked me on LinkedIn. That's how I got to know about BAN. See, even I didn't know that this platform exists. I didn't have anybody to guiding me that, hey, you can join this platform and you can start investing, So I think that, if there is a lot of corporate women and who do invest money in the Sanchoy Patro every year for the tax rebate, it's a lot of money they're probably investing, but I think they should start learning more about proper investment, and that's where maybe platforms like you can help to build this knowledge and create more awareness.
Mm. And thank you for that. And the last question I would have, obviously there's younger women in the room as well, obviously who might be listening in the future. What advice would you have to say young women who aspire to be to have a successful corporate career like you had, and also maybe a startup leader in the future? What's worked for you, or what advice would you give to someone in those shoes, or a younger version of yourself?
I think, whatever you do, it's very important to have a personal branding. I do believe in it, because there was a point in my career when, everybody knew me that, oh, this is the girl who works in Grameen phone. And then at one point, people started, because I built expertise in certain areas and I started personal branding. And then, people started calling me at different conferences as a speaker, or, people would ask me for advices because I become an area expert. So I think, whatever we do, whether it's in business or if I'm an entrepreneur or in corporate career, we have to know which areas we're good at and we're passionate about, and really build expertise in those areas. So, so I think that's very important, that, personal branding, whatever we do. So that's very important for me. And in corporate career, there is no shortcut. You have to work hard. Yeah. So, yeah, but, I think it's very important that you know what you like doing, what you like to do, and then if you hate your job, then leave. If you don't like something, then switch your department or something. Although I have been in Grameen phone for a very long time, but I switched so many departments internally, because after working in a certain work area for 3 to 4 years, and you feel like I have learned everything, I have nothing new to learn, right? But some people, they keep working in the same area for years after years. I think at that point you lose the passion for your job. So you always have to improve. The personal growth is very important. So in Bangladesh, I think when I was talking to a lot of investor founders, startup founders, what I figured is some people, they're very good in tech, but not necessarily they're very good in business. And some people, maybe they're very good in business, but not, very, good in tech. So I think you need a good combination, and in Bangladesh, I think it used to be very difficult. But now it's much easier. But I think where the startups struggle is to have the right combination of people in the startup, because a lot of startups fail, I think, because the founders, they don't match, because you have to have a combination of people who complement each other. They have different expertise. I think that's where I saw a lot of startups failing. And in terms of Bangladesh, I think the regulations is much, very startup friendly right now. The ICT division, they're funding, the startups, and a lot of startup friendly policies have been implemented. Also, like organizations like Grameen Phone, or even the mobile financial organizations like bKash, they're actually coming forward to open their APIs and gateways. Banks are giving loans. I think it's getting easier. So like even 5-6 years back, I saw a lot of startups really struggling for funding. And also, I think there should be more platforms like BAN. And I think we were talking about it, like, how you can create a fund from all the angel investors, and then also you can act as our, like all the angel investors investor, and then you can invest in the startups. I think if we can do that, that would be fantastic.
Makes yeah, absolutely. And these are things that we're actively exploring, and hopefully we'll have more news to share in the coming weeks and months. The same question, but from the opposite side, right? So being an investor, particularly when going from corporate, coming from the corporate sector, how easy is it from a, let's say, a regulatory standpoint, from a mechanics standpoint, to do that?
Like being an investor and investing?
Yeah.
If difficult or not? What is
right. And what are some difficult, maybe I'll rephrase the question. So what are some difficulties in doing that, or what difficulties have you found in doing that?
I think, for me, the first difficulty is I didn't have much knowledge in this area, so I have to self-taught, because I didn't know who to ask for, because most people, I feel that, who invest, they don't want to teach other people how to invest because they want to be the only investor. I don't know, maybe that was the mentality. Few people I went to, they would share very little information. So I think that was my biggest challenge. I just didn't know how to invest, I mean, not only in startup, there are many other investment portfolios, right? So I think for a professional, like, whether you should put your money in a startup or business or share market, so you should have all the options open, and you should learn about all these different, investment, opportunities. But I don't think there is one single platform or, knowledge platform where I could go and, like maybe an investment, mentor, like I would go to them and I would be like, hey, I have X amount of money. Well, what do you think? Where should I invest? And, what should be my portfolio? So I think there should be more portfolio managers. I think that's might be a profession that, should be created. But it's available outside, but I don't know in Bangladesh if there are professions like that.
And it's a good point, right? The whole wealth management industry, which angel investing is only one part of it, doesn't exist in Bangladesh, right? Like, it actually does not.
Because see, startup investment is risky, right? I think that also, deters all these corporates getting into it, because they feel that it's not a safe investment. So they put like, $1 million, and they might never see this money ever again, right? So if you diversify your portfolio, that's a more safer investment. So that's where you really need somebody to guide you, that where you should put your money, and how it would be less risky if you diversify your portfolio. I think that's where, I still struggle in this area. Yeah.
And so that's so maybe that's related to, I guess, the pot of money and dividing it. So for you, for example, if you were to cut an angel check, how much, do you have a budget in mind to say, this is how much I'm going to spend into startups, and this is how much I will divide across startups? Or
yeah, I do. So, every year I set a budget that this is how much I'm going to invest in startups. This is how much is going into share market. This is how much I'm just going to save and buy probably government bonds, some safe and some risky investments. So everybody should have a plan, like, how much money they're willing to gamble and how much money they want to invest in safe, portfolios. So that's how I divide my investment portfolios. But, no risk, no gain, right? So if everything goes in the safer portfolio, then you don't get the opportunity to earn a lot of money maybe in the future.
And would you be able to give us sort of like, what is the comfortable ticket size, that you're looking for, and what amount of shares that you also want to take typically? Or does that really vary from company to company?
So, of course, the smallest ticket size would be, I think, $10,000. That's where I would start from, but if I find that it's a fantastic idea, I see a lot of potential, they're probably making money already, or I see that, in the forecast, it's very, huge potential in the future, then yeah, maybe ticket size can go up, but the minimum is 10,000. Yeah.
I guess, given your kind of background, what are some, domains or subsectors that for potentially like, getting involved in angel investing that, you're excited about or you're tracking and you love to find some companies in?
So, I'm actually, one of my, areas I'm very passionate about is mental health. Even this morning I was talking to Zawad because that's something, I worked on in the intrapreneurship program. So it never got, launched in the market, but I always felt that there is a huge need for mental health counseling in the market. So that's something I would be very interested in. I would be interested in education again, because that's a very passionate area of mine. And I would be looking into any woman-led startup because I would really like to help them out. And also agriculture.
And then in terms of, this is another question. So I don't know if, you have looked into this or, you discussed this with Sajid Bhai and others, but what is sort of, given the risk, like you mentioned, right, there's a high chance you lose the money being an angel investor or setting aside money for angel investing. What would sort of be the acceptable return for you, especially when you do these forecasting?
My acceptable return for a startup is to start earning money probably in 3 to 5 years. That's where the business case is very important. I never expect that I'm gonna get money, get return in like 6 months or a year, because that's why it's a startup, right? But it should have a business viability within next 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
And when you say business viability, does that mean being able to buy back your shares, or you'd look to sell to future investors? Or
I think that depends on the circumstances. It's in 5 years I feel that I have way too many investments, and I want to get rid of few, then I would look for other potential buyers who would buy it off from me. Yeah.
No, but Sayma, I think we'll kind of end it here for today. But Sayma, thank you so much for doing this with us. Thanks for being with us as part of BAN, and I'm really excited. Once this pandemic is finally over, but even before, starting to kind of carry out all these things that we've talked about, and hopefully kind of growing the ecosystem together. So, and thank you for doing this today. We need more people like you. So
my NS friends. So it's good to see some known people, and I really hope that I could help some of you with some information. But all I'm gonna say, if there is any corporate in the line or who will be watching this, that there are more options to invest than Sanchoy Patro. That's very important, because that's where I have been investing for last 10 years, because I thought that's all I could do with my money, till I think since 2018, I'm like, oh, hey, there are many other things we can do with my money, and maybe get better returns. So I think people should start exploring, and Bangladeshi startup community is doing so well, because I have been following this industry very closely since 2014, because I actually worked with them, right? And I have to say, I have seen a tremendous development in this area, and people should be putting more money and helping this community. And as an investor, I think it's also a very good investment.
I agree, and I think we got to spread that knowledge, and so looking forward to it. Exactly.
I would actually request BAN and Nidjar, people like you should be actually trying to minimize that knowledge gap that we have, or maybe anybody who wants to invest, like what are the investment options, how do startups they raise funds, what is the difference between Series A and Series C and B, I think all these jargons, I think very simple language, if you can create a tutorial or sessions, bring more people like Sajid Bhai who can talk about his journey, that would be fantastic. So much to learn from them. And also, if you can connect people to people like Sajid Bhai, that would be also very helpful, because, he's very busy. So, maybe somebody wants to talk to him, but they don't know how to reach out to him. So, yeah.
For sure, and we'll have more of those. We'll have more sessions in the coming weeks with board members of BAN as well. So, but thank you so much for doing this today. Really appreciate it, and let's keep working together.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time.